Welcome back. More fallout today from the Jeffrey Epstein files. Peter Mendelsohn, the former UK ambassador to the U.S., has been arrested in London on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Mendelsohn has denied any wrongdoing related to Epstein. The arrest coming weeks after police opened a criminal investigation stemming from the Justice Department's latest release of Epstein-related files, which appear to show Mendelsohn providing Epstein with sensitive government information. And days after former Prince Andrew was arrested for the same allegation, following revelations about his relationship with Epstein. The former prince has also denied any wrongdoing in connection to Epstein. It also comes a day before Epstein survivors are set to attend President Trump's State of the Union address as guests of Democratic lawmakers. Joining me now is today's panel, Francesca Chambers, White House correspondent for USA Today, Arshi, Siddiqui, Democratic strategist and former senior aide to former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and Lonnie Chen, a fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University and an NBC News contributor. Thanks to all of you for being here. Lonnie, let me start with you. Before we get to the substance of the State of the Union address, this is going to be looming large over this tomorrow night. How do you see these optics playing out?
Well, it's like a storm cloud. It's a storm cloud over a lot of different people. Obviously, the Mendelsohn revelations indicate at the very least a severe lapse in judgment. And I think this is one of those things where nobody involved is going to, there's nothing good to say about this. And I think the optics are in a similar way very negative. Obviously, folks are trying to keep this in the news for political reasons, but the more that we discover, the less there is to like about any of this.
Arshi, what do you make of this and Democrats' decisions, some of them, to bring survivors tomorrow to the State of the Union? Could that backfire? How do you see that playing out?
No, I think actually that's the most positive development in terms of this, because I think the survivor piece of this often gets lost because there's so many different layers of this, and some people always deviate to the president. But this is about the survivors and these young women who their lives were really ruined in many instances. So I think that is a good thing. I also think that there's a big juxtaposition in what's happening abroad in England and the UK. You look at King Charles's statement, and you look at how resolute that nobody is above the law. And we just haven't seen that. And I think that's where Democrats are really doubling down, is that nobody can be above the law in the U.S.
Yeah, Lonnie, I think you're right. It's just going to loom so large over this speech tomorrow. Francesca, I think the issue that will loom largest, arguably, will be the economy. When you talk to Republicans, they say, we want the president to focus on the economy, his vision, as they fight to hold on to the House. What are you anticipating tomorrow night? Set the stage for us.
Well, I think you're absolutely right that the economy will be the biggest part of the speech. When it comes to other areas of it, I was just told earlier today by a senior White House official that they're still working on it. They're still rewriting it. And we might not even get, I think, those traditional excerpts that we've sometimes gotten from presidents in the past, because we know that President Donald Trump, he likes to ad-lib and add things in. And the last time he gave a joint address to Congress, I mean, they were changing things up until the final moments before the speech. So I guess that's one way to, set the stage. When it comes to the economy, though, I mean, this comes as we saw two major polls in the last few days show the president's approval rating lower than 40%. And it got the president's attention. He actually commented on it today at an event at the White House. I mean, he cast it as not accurate, the polling. He said he actually thinks his polling is higher than 40%, and said that he thinks that there's silent approval for his policies.
Lonnie, pick it up there, because one of the concerns that Republicans have expressed about the president is when he goes out on these campaign events, for example, to these battleground states, he starts off talking about the economy, but then he quickly veers off course. As Francesca is saying, this speech is still being written and rewritten. Who knows if he will stay on message? What does a win look like for the president, for Republicans on Wednesday morning?
I think it's addressing the core issues of cost of living and affordability, and the strengths on immigration. I think one of the challenges is that immigration has gone from a point of strength to a potential point of weakness as we've moved away from border security to internal immigration enforcement. I think it's become an issue that Republicans have been weaker on. And so I think a victory would be focusing entirely on those two issues, and particularly on the cost of living issues, articulating here are the things that the White House and Republicans plan to do to address these concerns, that the president hears those concerns and has a plan to deal with them.
Arshi, what's your reaction? What do you think Democrats are anticipating? And we know that some are actually saying they're not going to go. And by the way, no one can sit in those seats. So there may be, if in fact some Democrats boycott, empty seats because only members can sit in those seats.
Well, I think the challenge is we saw this with the Supreme Court ruling on tariffs. I think that drumbeat is going to continue to grow. This is after the ACA enhanced subsidies lapsed, and there hasn't been any sort of relief for Americans on that front. Then you look on tariffs, that would have been a very easy, after the Supreme Court ruling, it would have been an easy off-ramp, an elegant off-ramp to maybe revisit tariff policy. But the president did double down. And that goes back to cost of living. So I think not only do we have this overarching trend that the economy is great, that the president keeps on repeating, but also a lot of these policies are making things worse for American families.
And the issue of foreign policy, I mean, the economy is the #1 issue. But Francesca, foreign policy is certainly on the minds of a lot of Americans right now because there's been this discussion and moving these military assets to the Middle East. Questions about whether the president's going to strike Iran again. How much do you anticipate he will focus on foreign policy?
Well, he's going to want to take a victory lap on Venezuela and the capture of Maduro and probably those Iran strikes that took place last summer. With respect to the foreign policy, though, and how Americans are feeling about it, in the Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll last week, just 35% of Americans approved of the president's foreign policy. So he's not much better off, I would say, there when it comes to foreign policy than the economy. And actually, right now, the issue that he does poll best on is his handling of the United States border with Mexico. Immigration has consistently been his best issue.
And Arshi, what are you going to be listening for as it relates to foreign policy? Again, it's not the #1 issue or even the #2 issue for voters, but given the fact that the world is on edge right now, waiting to see what he's going to do on Iran.
I mean, whether he's going to go for common ground and a unified front with Congress, because this is a place, when you look at Iran, there could be bipartisan support. And he has deviated from that in recent weeks. And I think this is an opportunity for him.
You know, part of the challenge is there are divisions within the Republican base on some of these foreign policy questions and the president's interventions, whether it's Venezuela, potentially in Iran going forward. I think there's some real angina in the base about how this goes consistent with or inconsistent with the president's command or his desire to end forever wars. And I think that's part of the challenge here.
And I was going to say, and Kristen, this coincides with the 4th anniversary of Russia's war against Ukraine tomorrow. So I'll be curious to see what, if anything, the president says about that. I mean, his negotiators are still trying to get a deal between Russia and Ukraine, but so far they've been unable to.
I'm glad that you raised that. We're, in fact, about to talk to the Ukrainian ambassador coming up next. You're absolutely right. The president said he was going to end that war on his first day in office, hasn't been able to do it. Francesca, quickly, we have a little bit of what's arguably a sideshow, which is that FBI Director Kash Patel caught on camera chugging a beer with the U.S. men's hockey team after their incredible victory over the weekend. The question, Francesca, about timing, about optics, it came on the same day that the Secret Service had to shoot a man at Mar-a-Lago. Concerns about how the FBI leadership is being run. Do you think this is going to be a problem for the administration and for Kash Patel?
Well, not with the president. The president was on the phone when this was taking place and inviting the men's hockey team to come tomorrow night. So I think the president's made himself clear.
What do you think?
I think it depends entirely on the lens through which you see Donald Trump. If you're a supporter of the president, this doesn't bother you. If you are a detractor of the president, this bothers you like many other things do. I mean, there's a judgment question here, which I think, we could talk about. But fundamentally, the politics of this, I think, play exactly how you'd expect them to.
It really is Arshi, a Rorschach test, right, about how you feel about President Trump and the Trump administration.
And also, it reinforces this narrative that the administration may be out of touch. And I think that's with everyday Americans. And I think that is a challenge that we're going to see that's continue to grow.
All right, and I'll just read what he had to say. He said, "I love America and was extremely humbled when my friends, the newly minted gold medal winners on Team USA, invited me into the locker room to celebrate this historic moment with the boys." So there you have it, guys. Great conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Francesca, Arshi, and Lonnie. Appreciate it. Coming up after the break, as we just said, Ukraine's ambassador